Welcome to Long Distance Listening, a music podcast. Hello and welcome to Long Distance Listening. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Nate.
Welcome to part 2 of our 2-part episode with Campbell Burns from Vacations. If you haven't listened to our first part with Campbell, we discuss just general questions about vacations. We talk about touring. We talk about theme of Forever in Bloom. We talk about album artwork and just a bunch of stuff, just general questions. And in this part, we are going to be going track by track through Vacations' newest album, which is out now, called Forever in Bloom. So listen to part 1 of our interview, listen to the new album Forever in Bloom, just for proper context for the questions we're going to be asking, going track by track through this album. So Nate, are you ready for part 2 with Campbell Burns?
No doubt. So, welcome back, Campbell. Are you ready to go track by track through Forever in Bloom?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So first up, we have Floraison. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Floraison?
So I love this intro. It's such a great way to introduce fans to what the sound of the album is going to be like, while adding nature sounds to start the evolution of the concept of the album as well. And its transition into seasons is perfect. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only instrumental besides Dave Brubeck on the Vibes EP. Did you always plan on having an instrumental intro? And if not, when along the process did you guys decide to have this track?
I feel like it was very early on that we wanted to have an instrumental, or not even like an instrumental, like to intro the album. We just wanted a really big statement kind of track. And I felt like we actually tried to write that song several times, but it wasn't really coming together. And Seasons was the right pick to kick off the album, but we were like, well, it feels kind of weird just immediately going into that drum break that Joey bashes out, you know? It's like, it's a bit abrupt. So we just kept like trying ideas out. And then I think in the second week, towards the end of our sessions, we were, talking about this with Oscar, and we were like, well, what do we do? What are your thoughts? What's your perspective? How can we get around this? And I feel like this song actually was written in the space of 5 minutes. It's crazy. Like I'm trying to like we were talking about this, and like all these ideas were bouncing around, and Oscar was like listening, and then he just like turns back in his chair and goes on the computer and just starts like typing away like quite frantically, like he's like hacking into like the Matrix or something. And he's like, yeah, just give me like 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And he's just like pulling samples from like The Void and like drum breaks and like guitar licks and then like sax and like there's all these crazy it must be crazy to like listen to it headphones. It'd be like all this swirling noise going everywhere. But like he just put this track together like so quickly, and like obviously we gave like some direction of where we would like to take it. We were like, oh, maybe this note, maybe that note, maybe this sample comes in here. But like seriously, I can't stress how quickly that track came together. I mean, we're like just sitting back listening to it, we're like, ooh, this is just incredible. Like such like and we were like, it was great because we were imagining. I think this is really good when you're listening to a song and it kind of takes you somewhere else. Like for us, we were all imagining walking out on stage about to play this album. And we're like, this is exactly the feeling that we want. Like you're front row, really excited to see this band play. This track comes in. You know how bands do that? Like when you, like, especially as a teenager, like for me at least, like when I went to shows all the time when I was like 15, 16, seeing these like really big bands at these gorgeous theaters, and like they play that walk on track, and it's like, that's cool.
Yes. You got me like super excited for a Vacation show, and now I'm even more mad that COVID exists because I want to see that intro and I want to see you guys play.
I want to do it. Also, as well, just a fun fact with that track, there's actually a poem as well. If you get the vinyl edition you'll be able to read it. There's a poem that goes with that track. So I guess if you're reading that while you're listening to it, kind of creating this like multimedia experience, I feel like it'll be very, I don't know, you'll have a good time.
So because we didn't have the poem, I'm the lyric guy. Andrew more handles the music. I handle the lyrics. So we both dabble in each other's field. Because I'm the lyric guy, I will work with the one word I do have, which is the title floraison. So floraison means kind of like a blossoming, which I think is such a beautiful and poetic name for the opener, because that's what this really is for the record. Like, this song is
it's like the album's like blooming out, and the reason why it's French is not to be like pseudo intellectual. It's more because that tour we did in Europe, it started off in France. So I always just, when I think back to like the Alps and everything, I think of like France and like those first early days. And it's just like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? We've never toured before, didn't have a manager at the time. Like, I was still doing all that whole process and like organizing everything. It was so frantic and stressful. So
next up, we have Seasons. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Seasons?
So this song hits so hard, and Campbell, I think exactly what you said about needing that intro track. Like, I hadn't actually pictured this song without the intro track, and you're so right. It would feel weird to jump in that hard after nothing, like if that just started the album. But this is the perfect song to start the album, kind of from actually having a full fleshed out song. But the intro leading into it, now I even love even more, because I go, man, you take that intro away, you take that first track away, and the song doesn't hold up as much, just because it would feel awkward. But I love this song so much. The instruments are catchy and help introduce your indie pop sound. The mesh of the guitars and synths are so well crafted that it's easy to lose track of which instrument has the hook. There's also some saxophone used in the song, which is amazing. You do such a great job writing hooks for this album, and in this song in particular. Can you talk about your process writing hooks and parts for this track?
So, this track actually came from Nate. So, I don't know. This is like, I'm pretty sure he actually had this song around when Changes was being tracked. And I guess, like, I don't know if he ever sent it through or like if it was the right fit for the album. But I'm very glad he held onto that idea and sent it through again. Because, like, we're working through it, and we're into the ideas there, and like we're just jamming out as a band, and like I feel like it's sort of our big stadium festival track. Like, it's, again, like, it's a very like statement, like just like big, like so much is happening kind of song for us. But like for the hooks, I mean, I don't know, you got to ask Nate for that. I definitely like added some like little guitar leads like here and there, and that's just like a case of bouncing off like his ideas. But I think, like, again, like thinking to that whole like collaborative process, like it's just a case of us all working together and really refining those hooks, doing all those like pre-production sessions, and then having someone like Oscar in there. So
I'm in love with the drums in this song, as well as the melodies and the falsettos in the chorus, and the bright and catchy guitars, as well as the saxophone on the second half of the track. All right, okay, I like everything. But one of the main lines for me is, day to day, everything has a reason. And I think this idea is kind of spread throughout the record, that there's significance and purpose in life, and where you find purpose or how you use your time really matters. But I want to specifically talk about the inspiration for the song as a whole, which you might have to fold again and say, ask Nate. But this song is about the band's first time touring across the world. Do you mind kind of sharing some of the memories and feelings that helped inspire this song?
Yeah, this album is loosely chronological with our experience of touring, and especially that world tour and Europe. So for me, Seasons sort of places you at the start of that journey. Like, you've heard the album kind of blooming with Florizen, and now it's like you're here with Seasons. So it's sort of like our first few days in France, and also that initial flight over. I mean, while we were flying, at least my thoughts were just like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? And how is it going to go? Like, there were so many questions, and I've never had that experience. I had no idea what the outcome was going to be. Like, how many people were going to be at our show, and how's it all going to go ahead? So I feel like that song is really just kind of encapsulating, like, kind of that sense of like fear. Like, this is going to be scary. This is going to be really character building. But if I really want to be like the musician that I want to be, then I'm going to have to go through experiences like this and really like test myself. So, and also as well, it's like I've sort of done this before. Like, I think the second verse touches on that, if I can remember my own lyrics, but like, it's like, I've played so many shows in Australia. Like, why is this any different? Like, sure, it's another country, but when it gets down to it, you're still just performing for people. It doesn't really matter if the place is different, or like, you know?
Definitely. So next up, we have Lavender. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Lavender?
So this was the first single from the album, and I love this beginning guitar tone. I think it just carries the intro so strong. It comes in really hard. And once again, in this song, there are hooks for days, and there's even a really great and fitting guitar solo. This is one of the catchiest choruses on the album, and some of my personal favorite vocals on the album.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the writing and recording process for your vocals for this song?
Nate had sent through the demo for Lavender, and I was really, really into it, but I needed to spruce up the rhythm of the rhythm guitars, give it that kind of jangly kind of momentum and like feel, and sort of like just keep the song pushing along. So I was like, this is such a good bass to work off. There are all these like hooks that would be the chorus, that I started laying down these guitars, and then like slowly like the melodies kind of started opening up. It was a song that quite naturally vocal melodies came, and for me, I love stacking melodies and harmonies. And I was writing and thinking about, again, like Europe, France, and just sort of songs. I feel like I don't know why, I feel like when I'm writing, especially writing lyrics, I feel like the song needs to have a sense of self-affirmation or like positivity. Like, I don't like writing songs that are like about experience, but then like the song is kind of negative. It doesn't end on a positive note. And this song had such like a summery, like good feel. Like, it really needed to capture that as well. So the chorus melody that you hear, that's the first like pass, I guess. Like, that was the first idea. And I remember sending through the vocals, and everyone was like, "This is just catchy." Like, they were like, "Oh, like I remember someone was like, oh, maybe we could, change the lyrics. Maybe we could try this." But also, it's been stuck in my head. Like, I can't. Like, it's a good sign,
So I have a couple questions. The song talks about the balance of loving tour and living out your dream, but also wanting to share that experience with others back home, and kind of being unable to because it doesn't translate over camera or over the phone. And my first question is, where does the title Lavender come from in light of the lyrics or from the song as a whole?
Again, that came from Nate. He's very visual when he comes up with song titles, and that was the title he just had pitched for the song. So again, it taps into that whole idea of just like natural imagery. And then for me, like that idea of Europe, first tour, all the band together.
So secondly, the instrumentals are such a huge part of the band's writing. And for me, it's one of my favorite parts of the band's songwriting. I think the instrumental at the end of this track is absolutely phenomenal. So how do you see the role of instrumentals in the band's discography, and why do you think you gravitate towards writing them?
I mean, it's funny that you say that for this case, because like I remember it was really, really late at night. And again, this is just a case of me mucking around with my little home studio set up. I had my guitar plugged in and I decided to just throw in a distortion plug-in, and I just cranked it. And I just started shredding over the top, and it went for so long. But I was like, this is really good. I was having the best time. And I got into like a trance with it. I was like, this is so over the top and ridiculous. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm like, this is a good practice for myself. But I was like, I'll send it through as well. Because this is when I was doing the guitar session and kind of finessing the rhythms, and sort of, and then that lead idea came out of nowhere. And I was like, this is great. Like, I'll see what happens. And everyone was like, this is really fun. Like, it just adds that bit of kick to the song, you know? Like, I can't imagine it without the solo there.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have actors. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on actors?
So this song has some of my favorite synth work on the album. The mix of 80s sounding synths with warped synths and textured pads create an amazing soundscape for the song. And it's crazy. Every song is so fun and loud, but you're able to create such different textures in each track that the album doesn't get old or feel like it's all the same. So what was the process of making sure you constantly change your sound within the record, and how did that show up in your writing specifically for actors?
So touching on the synths, that's definitely that Porsche's inspiration coming through there. That's me messing around with the Roland Juno 106. And then I think in terms of keeping things like consistent, that's really like Oscar's job. I feel like he does a really good job of just like taking, because like before, like it was this, because this is a song that came from myself, and it was like this little like drum machine and like guitars, and it was very like boppy, like really like a lot happening, like very like fun, upbeat kind of song. But I feel like Oscar actually, he pitched the song to be Four on the Floor, and it kind of became a running gag that is what he would say. That's be his first thought. He'd be like, okay, the song needs to be Four on the Floor. And we're like, you always say that. But however, for this, it worked really well because it already had that like kind of old 80s like Lindrum drum machine like vibe going from throughout it. And then we're just adding that extra like couple of kicks. It just became even more fun. Like it's easily my favorite song on the album. Like it's just so... It's funny as well, even listening to the vocal performance as well, like on the original demo, it's quite soft and it's quite like, it's very easy kind of listening, I guess, because I just did it at home. But I remember when I was at the studio, like and then listening back, I was like, oh my God, I'm belting this. Like I'm really, and it's kind of like grainy and like saturated as well. And I remembered like we had this really beautiful like Neumann, like U87, like, $10,000 microphone. But then right next to it, we had this microphone that I built with a friend of mine, and it's an old telephone.
Wow. And
we just had that right next to it, and it sounds like absolute garbage, but I think that's the reason why the song is just so like the vocals are so bitey, and then you got this like old drum machine behind it, and then you got these synths, and you got these like really boppy guitar. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, it's easily my favorite.
So this track has another killer instrumental. From a thematic standpoint, I feel like a lot of the band's joy on the record comes from being able to be a band for others, like so many bands have been for you guys. And the title Actors comes from Vacations reaching this point where you guys are realizing like you're the act for some people. You sing in the chorus, it's so strange to even be here, to be anything at all. And I wonder if those lines, with those lines, if the title Actors also kind of addresses this idea of not feeling worthy, almost as if the people on stage can't really be you. Like you're acting at this part that you never wrote and you feel like you don't deserve. I think the medical term is imposter syndrome. But would you say any of that is accurate?
Yeah, 100%. That's really based on this one experience. I remember it was the last show of the year. We were in Bangkok for Mahal Rasop Festival, and we were the last act on the smallest stage. And I was like, that's like, that in itself is amazing and wild. But I remembered, like, because this is an outdoor festival as well, like we were like getting ready, we're setting up on the stage, and it was like, you know, like so much had happened that year for it to be the last show. It's quite like monumental or quite significant. But then, like, as I was setting up, like in the distance on the main stage where thousands of people are watching this band, the band was Slow Dive, and they were currently playing their set, and we had to play after that, which makes no sense like no sense at all. Like one of like my like I really like that band is so like inspirational to me and really influential to my sound and guitar tone, like especially growing up. And the fact that I'm playing after them, like regardless, it's on a smaller stage, but seeing them in the distance and like they're playing, and it's just like it. Yeah, I can't. Oh my god, it makes no sense. Seriously, like I remember I was just like I was just standing on the stage and I just started like tearing up, and I was like, I need to be setting up right now, but I'm so like transfixed and like how much it means to me. And I was like, oh, like I then snapped out of it. I was like, we have to play like right now. Like, yeah. So it's just like kind of it pretty much is based off that one experience. I mean, again, like definitely instances in Europe, but specifically that moment in Bangkok for me.
Well, for what it's worth, we think your platform is very well deserved.
Thanks.
So next up, we have Time Crisis. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Time Crisis?
So once again, all the elements of a great vacation song are here. Moving bass lines, piercing synths, your distinct vocals and layered guitars carry the instrumentation of the song. And some of your songs have a very nostalgic feel, and this is definitely one of them. I know this song is in some ways based off of the arcade game Time Crisis, specifically Time Crisis 2. Do you mind elaborating on that and also sharing some of the other influences on that nostalgic side of your sound?
Yeah, absolutely. The song started out as a complete joke. I'm not kidding. I had a writing session at home one day, and I think it was a day after band practice. So someone was talking about Time Crisis, and then like mentioning how like Jake and Joey, every time we go to Brisbane, there's this like arcade bar called Netherworld, and they have a Time Crisis 2 machine. And there was one day on tour where they actually beat the game, and I remember they were up to like the last level, and they were like running around the bar trying to find like gold coins and like, you know, it's like just like get it finished. And it was like so like high stress and lots of like tension and action, and it was like exciting. It was cool. And I was like, oh, it'd be funny to write something about that. Like that would just be, and like actually pulling samples from the game and like just, I don't know. I remembered I wrote it like maybe in the space of half an hour, and it was like kind of there. But I sent it through and everyone was like, oh, again, like it's just a funny thing. I was like, oh, I actually really like this. Like this is really fun. And then I remember it sort of sat for a little while, and I feel like Nate got a hold of the stems and just really kind of added a couple more sections to it and gave it what it needed to make it onto the album. And he made it really dreamy, added some really like gorgeous synth textures, and like that hook in the chorus, that da 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 da, and like and again, like lyrically, it's just me singing about Jake and Joey playing Time Crisis 2, almost as if they were in the video game. Like it's two like players talking to one another, like two NPCs. Like I don't know why, that's just really funny to me. And it's like fun, like trying to write about something that's not really real, like you're just kind of making up a story or something. Like, yeah.
I think what's really cool is in the midst of not the song being a gag, but like you're talking about, kind of approaching the song in a very free and loose way. You still wrote some very like beautiful lyrics. And one of my favorite lines on the song and on the record is "Don't restart what you haven't finished," and it makes perfect sense in light of the video game stuff. But it's definitely more universal than that. I think the beauty of the line for me is that there's hope and something good left to be discovered, often in areas of life or in relationships where we want to give up. And I think, ironically, in video games, we can just restart at any time if things aren't going well. And sometimes we think that can carry over to life, but there's value in finishing something and seeing it through to the end, even if it didn't turn into what we thought it would turn into. So my first question, which I'm not going to ask, is what inspired the lyrics for this track. But my second question is, do you find this principle important sometimes while writing songs? This need to see things through and finish an idea or a song before just scrapping everything and calling it quits?
I think so. And I think so, especially for this album and what the album was going to mean for us. I think everyone at some point probably had this feeling of like, oh, what's the point of like this band? Where am I going? What am I doing? And I think like, again, that lyric was kind of written like I wrote it like as a filler, and then I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. I was like, that's like, it's kind of dumb, but I'm like, it actually has a lot of meaning. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like everyone at some point had moments where they kind of wanted to call it quits, but it's like, well, we've come so far, like, let's just see this album through, and like, let's just see this experience through together and see what it's going to bring for us, and then, you know, see what happens after that.
Well, we're glad you saw it through. Next up, we have the track Glow. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Glow?
So this song is a pretty big change of pace for this album so far, although it is reminiscent of Changes. As this song, it has more of a shuffle feel to it. So you adapt so well vocally to this change of style with the melody, which uses longer falsetto notes, and the cadence, which is just so rhythmic. Though the track sounds so natural and simple, that doesn't mean it's easy to write, though it may have been. So what were some of the challenges in writing Glow?
I guess, I mean, like, you're right, that song actually did, again, come together quite quickly. Almost in the sense that it's actually the easiest song to play as well, because the production is quite simple. It is almost sort of like a throwback track to Changes or to Vibes. I sort of just wanted to have at least one song where it was like, we can just play this. We don't need backing tracks. We don't need crazy synths or anything like that, or huge like bass drops or anything. It's quite to the point. But I guess challenging in a sense that it's actually the first love song that I've actually written. Like I don't write love songs, but this is a love song in a sense. So that was kind of weird. That was kind of a challenge as a songwriter. And now that I've done that, I'm just way more open to the idea of writing more love songs. So I don't know, that could be an interesting direction for Vacation.
So this is a perfect transition. I was going to mention that this is the first love song you've written, and you end the track singing, "For a moment, there is nothing else except you," which I think is so beautiful. But why do you think you've kind of stayed away from writing love songs before this? And why was this one the one to kind of break the ice?
I'm definitely in a very healthy, loving relationship right now, where it feels quite, not easy, but I feel like I can get those feelings out. And I feel like, again, to tie it to the theme of touring and, you know, like companionship, or like being this like band that's going through everything, just missing, because we all have partners ourselves, like we're all dating people, and just missing that significant someone in your life while you're out on the road, and just really wanting to see them again. And it's that immediate moment when you finally get home and you get to see them, and it's just like you're just so enveloped by this person, and like you just focus on them, and it again, like, yeah, nothing does matter, because it's just like you're just there with them, and that's the moment. Like, so I guess I just really wanted to pen that, and it probably is again like one of my other favorite songs on the album, just because of how like simple and sweet it is.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have Panache. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Panache?
So this is one of my personal favorite songs on the album. It has a sound that will shock most fans the first time that they hear it. It has such a great bass groove. It has ethereal vocals throughout, and such a catchy vocal performance by both yourself and Sarah Sykes, and then a really cool addition of adding Craterface as well. I really want to highlight the change of sound in the middle of this song, where it changes its whole vibe, the auto-tune comes in, and it's such a great way to create, in my opinion, one of the coolest moments on the entire album. And I know we've talked about this a little bit in part one, but I just want to ask more. Can you talk more about how that later part came into being as well?
So that part was definitely expanded upon in, I think, either the first week or maybe the second week. I don't know. It was definitely while we were at the Grove getting the main bulk of tracking down. And we spent so much time, almost maybe too much time. I don't know. I remember at some point it was getting late. We were like, we really need to track another song. Like, we're just spending all this time on an outro. But it was fun. It was like we were having all these ideas bounce back and forth, and it was such like a divisive and experimental and crazy track. Like, it was just so much. I feel like I definitely owe a lot to Oscar there for sort of expanding it further, adding in like drum samples and trying different ideas with Joey on the drums. I remember at one point, I think we kind of wanted to pull back from the trap kind of nature, or like the synthetic nature of the track, and we were trying that. Like, Joey was like really bashing like the ride cymbal, and it was sounding more like guitar focused and rocky. It just wasn't sitting well. It felt like you were going down the path, and I was like, I don't know. It's just like, it's like, no, go back. Like, go down this other one. Like, this is the right one. Like, this feels good. And we just tried so many different things. And it was definitely the most collaborative track as well, because of like, again, having people like Sarah and having people like Craterface. So there was just everyone in the room. And again, like, just so many ideas going around. We really like just experimented and just had fun, especially like singing with auto-tune or something, or just hearing 808s over a Vacations track. Like, it sounds so dumb, but it works really well. And I think it's good. Again, I think I might have touched this before, but I think it's just good to push yourself as an artist and as a person, and just try something new. And if people don't like it, they don't like it, but it's going to pull in other potential fans or other potential listeners, where your older stuff might not have grabbed them in the first place. This track might be the one to do it. And I think it's good to have that balance of, as a manager would put it, light and shade throughout an album. Like, it would be so easy for us to just write 12 glow sounding tracks and like kind of go down the same path as before. But I don't know, why not do something like this?
So thematically, and as you mentioned also from an instrumental standpoint, this is definitely a diversion from Glow. Thematically, whether it's talking about the same relationship or not, it's definitely, you're not carrying the same sentiments as you were in Glow. And
oh my god, I didn't even think about that. That's really funny.
You can, if you want to build off that, that's fine.
I find it really interesting how people interpret tracks, or how, like, you know, their personal experiences can affect like the overall experience. So there's so many variables when you're listening to a song. So like, no, I will clarify, no, that song isn't about my experience in Globe and also current experience because I'm still in a relationship. But it's kind of touching on more people I've encountered in the music industry and I guess my journey as an artist, and people that are sort of appearing to want to work with you or work in your favor or do something for you. But then it's kind of like, well, what are you doing? Like, you're not really doing what you said, or you're kind of being slack, or it's like, there's an error in communication here and it's not working out. And it's like, come on, like meet me in the middle, like in the chorus, like let's work this out however it goes, like.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we're glad your relationship's going well. So I think you do such a great job, and Nate, of writing the chorus parts from an instrumental, but also you specifically melodically. They're not just catchy, but they're also just such great sing-along parts, which I think is one of the huge draws to the band, that you're such a sing-along band that people, when they want to go to a show, they want to sing every word. And in a lot of the choruses, you keep things simple, you use repetition, and the lyrics are not overly poetic or confusing, and you wrap it all with a very memorable melody. And this track, again, is a great example of that. How much do you guys think through that sing-along factor, specifically with this track, and how much are you thinking through that with other songs as well?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because it's only sort of dawned on me recently that, because I've been writing lyrics for other songs here and there, but I think a chorus needs to be simple. It just needs to be to the point. I like the idea of having like really flowery, almost like verbose kind of sounding verses and bridges and other sections, whatever they might be. But getting to the chorus, it's like that should just summarize the whole thing. Like, you don't need to go full Shakespearean on your listeners. And I don't know, some people can do it and it kind of works, but then I feel like sometimes I'm like, I can't sing this. Like, this is just not, like, it doesn't flow. It's like confusing, or then people sing the wrong lyrics. So I think like it's just important to have a good, simple, catchy hook. And why not do that in the chorus,
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have Something Here. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Something Here?
So I really love the timing on this song. The long intro is the perfect way to usher the listener into an amazing new groove in 2/4 that you guys use. You're also singing mostly in your lower register during the verses, and then jumping to your high falsetto in the choruses. And this song has one of the best vibes on the album, in my opinion. So can you talk about the use of 2/4 in this song and the challenges and benefits that changing to a different time signature created for this song?
So Joey, I remember this. At one time at band practice, Joey literally said, like, we should just have a song in 2/4. Like, I'd just love to try something like that. And I was like, 2/4, eh? What does that sound like? Like, I actually couldn't imagine what 2/4, even though it's, it's just half the beats in like 4/4 signature, like stock standard signature. I was just like, what would that be? So I went home and just opened up Logic and then just changed 4/4 to 2/4. And I was like, cool, okay, like, let's just try mucking around. And I was like, again, this is like when I was really getting into the synths and like, again, like that Porches kind of sound and really just experimenting. And I was like kind of getting dancey and groovy. And I was like, this is fun. I really like this. Like, it's just such a groove. And I especially because the album does head in such a dance territory, at least for us, in some other songs later on in the album. And I just thought like it'd be good to sort of keep expanding on that theme and just trying something that's more synth focused rather than guitar focused. So it was just a sort of a way for me to open up my songwriting and again challenge myself and grow and develop as a person. So I mean, with that, keeping it in mind of synth focus, but then also the 2/4 time signature, I think that just really was beneficial. And it's just like, yeah, again, a different flavor for the album, because I think every other song is in 4/4. So just something a little different,
So this song has easily grown on me the most while listening to the record. The first time I heard it, I was thrown off, whether it was the 2/4 or just the whole aesthetic. I was like, what's going on? I was not expecting it, but it's so cool, and it plays such a unique role on the record. The main line, "I know anything could happen," I think reflects a huge theme of the record, which is the possibility of the unknown. And I think that's something that's so scary for a lot of people, but you seem to find solace and you seem to find hope in that. So why do you think you have that attitude?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. I think I, again, might have touched on this before, but I just like writing lyrics. Like, I'm not trying to write a self-help book, although I feel like maybe one day you could collect all the lyrics and create a book out of that. But I just like lyrics that are kind of life-affirming or hopeful or like are inspiring, like just sort of like, essentially, if you could really boil it down, everything's going to be okay. I'm not entirely sure why that seems to be my writing style, and I feel like I'm kind of noticing that trend as I keep progressing with writing, but it just seems to come, I don't know, it's what comes naturally to me. And those lyrics were actually like just the demo, like stock, like it's the first thing that kind of came to my head. And I did actually do several revisions of the lyrics, and I even tried to change up kind of the nature of it and add even more lyrics and really try and weave more of a story. But it was sort of counterproductive to the song's nature, because I feel like as the song kind of progresses and marches forward, it's almost kind of trance-like it is kind of almost like just repetitive, like kind of krautrock. Like it's just the same thing kind of over and over again. Then you get that switch up halfway through, and I was really enjoying writing switch ups as well. And yeah, just even like kind of keeping this like similar lyrics, but just changing the register. I don't know why, it felt right. And usually I found as well with this album, the first idea is the best idea. Like you try deviating from that idea and it just feels wrong, or it just doesn't stick as well. And you're kind of like, no, that idea actually had like a lot going for it. And that's like the most truest version of the idea, I find as well.
Yeah, that's sick. Next up, we have Ego. All right, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Ego?
So the rhythm section, the drums and bass for this song are so freaking tight. I find it almost impossible not to move and bop my head with this track. The guitar part in the chorus is what I want to highlight because I think it's so amazing. It's this repetitive pattern that keeps starting and ending on different beats, but ends up finishing at the perfect point. Can you talk about writing and recording that part specifically?
I can't speak on that part specifically because that part did come from Nate, but what I can say is that this was the hardest song to write on the album. So I'm really glad you liked the riff, because that was actually, we had our first like collaborative like team writing session was like late 2017 at Nate's parents' house while they were away on a holiday in Italy. And I remember, I think we had 2 days back to back, and On Your Own came from that, and Ego also came from that session. And it's gone through like 10 plus revisions, which might not sound like a lot to like some other artists, because I know they just keep revising and revising. But this song for us, like, it was like hitting a brick wall over and over again. Like we just really couldn't seem to get it down right. And I think just before going to the Grove, like we had like a pretty strong idea. I don't know if we were 100% sold on it, but I remember Oscar really came out on this one and like really like helped like just kind of, because there actually were heaps more lyrics originally, and the lyrics was really hard to write as well. Like I remember there were no lyrics for a year. We had this instrumental and there was no lyrics, and it was really hard, I think, for the band, because I actually liked the song the most, and I think it was really hard for everyone else to vibe it because they couldn't hear the vocals, but being the vocalist, I could hear the lyrics. Like I could hear what it sounded like even though there were no lyrics. But I remember, Oscar like really helped us and like just solidified that groove and just cut sections. And like we actually wrote the chorus there because there was like, again, several versions of the chorus, but we just like cut down so much of the fat, so to speak, and just condensed it, just made it like a bit more straightforward, because I think maybe there might have been just too much going on. It's funny actually having these questions and really reflecting, because I haven't thought about that song in a while. But yeah, oh my God, I'm glad it came out the way that it did, because I think it ended up working, and I'm glad we stuck with it. But there was definitely a point where we were like, this isn't going to work for the album, we're going to scrap it, or it's going to be like a B-side. But then it ended up staying by having someone like Oscar coach us through that track.
So vocally, the verses and the chorus come across as very confident, very forward. And in the chorus, you sing, "Is this what you want? Death by ego." It sounds very playful and funny with the harmonies and the lyrics. It's very bright. But then the bridge just takes a totally different approach vocally, for me at least. It feels yearning, it's pleading, it's longing. It feels more serious and more tender. Do you mind sharing how you approach this track vocally in light of the theme of the song?
Definitely. I mean, because this song had to be revised so much, and then it was revised even further and like condensed when we got to the studio, I feel like lyrically it was almost, or at least my approach to it vocally, I should say, was kind of freestyled. Like we just kind of tried doing take after take, and I had all the lyrics there, and I was like, I'm just going to sort of see what fits. Because again, it's like another switch up in the album, but it's like a complete mood shift. Like it gets kind of like dark and serious, and I just felt like a more, I guess, aggressive kind of style. Even like my vocals are even kind of broken at that point. Like it's kind of like pitchy and weird, but I don't know, it just seems to fit in that section.
Next up, we have Peaches. All right. Okay, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Maybe it should have been. I don't know. That's funny. I did not think about that. Peaches was the like one of the original. Like I think it was like July 21st, and then I just changed it to Peaches because I was just thinking about fruit at the time, and then I was like, that's a cute name. Like that's kind of fun. Like. Colorful, but yeah, I guess it's.
I don't mean to spoil your cute version. I like your idea better.
I'm too pure and wholesome for this work.
Exactly, you are. Okay, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
So every time I hear that chorus groove, I go, that is so freaking catchy. And I smile every time during that chorus. I'm just blown away with the intricate layered instruments. To me, the drums and bass carry this song. And we know you aren't the drummer or bassist, but are you able to give any insight on the writing and recording of the drums and bass on this track?
Yeah, so I wrote the bass line for that track. I remember this was like, again, during that process where I was getting really into synths and I was trying another synth kind of jam. And I was kind of into it. The bass hook was really cool, but it was just the process of me sending it through to the guys and like getting opinions and like thoughts and discussion and all that. Joey really loved the initial demo. He saw so much potential in it. And I was just kind of like, yeah, that's cool, man. You really seem to like it. Like I almost didn't kind of get it, but I'm glad that like, and I think this is a great thing about collaboration, because you get more done. You get more done so much quicker. He saw so much potential, and it just made me kind of go back and revise and add more parts. And then I added that really deep sub bass line to it. And I was like, oh, this is heavy. This is good. I'm really into this. And like, again, I think this is sort of the first track to kick off that kind of dance aesthetic that's sort of sprinkled throughout the album. So yeah, just like there's definitely a lot of interplay between like guitars and synths. It was just trying to kind of find that right balance. And yeah, I guess just like a lot of experimentation. This is definitely like when I was listening to a bit of Porches as well. I can't remember what Porches song it is, but like in the chorus of one of his songs, there's like these palm muted guitars that come in left and right. And I loved like that idea and like treating the guitar as like a kind of like a hi-hat. So like just trying ideas like that and having the guitars almost sort of take a back seat. Like there's not heaps of guitar work throughout, except for the like that subtle layering to sort of still kind of keep it in the Vacations aesthetic. But the drums, like it was drum machine. Joey's kind of taken that. He always called the drum machine Roberto. He hated hearing the demos because he was like, oh, I just have to listen to this like machine like play the drums, and it's like I just want to play this. But Joey did like a fantastic job adapting that and not keeping it like too like keeping it kind of grounded and I guess palatable for the song. Like it's not too like rocky, it's not too like this or that. But yeah, I think that's everything. Bassline is just me mucking around with bass and just writing something crazy and then just like putting it all together.
So in the chorus, you sing, "Does it ever feel right, or does it always remain the same?" Which I find extremely interesting in light of tracks like Something Here or Seasons and a lot of the sentiments on the record before this. It's cool that there's kind of some pushback thematically on your own part, like admitting that looking ahead is not always as easy as it might seem. Sometimes it's hard not to get stuck in the past, feeling like you or a situation hasn't changed and never will. But despite those observations on the lyrics, my question has nothing to do with that. My question has to be, how did you come up with and hit those falsettos at the end?
Oh my God, I wish I could tell you. I've just been getting way more into vocal layering and harmonizing. I have to thank Telephones Off Changes for that, because I remember one day I had my laptop set up in the kitchen and input monitoring was turned on for one of the tracks so I could hear what was coming through, and I had my headphones on and I didn't have a mic or anything. There was no interface or recording equipment. It was actually the mic in my laptop, and I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. I'm just going to do another pass and then another pass, and just kept stacking vocals. And I feel like that's a theme that's carried on every song since. I don't know how to answer that question, but it's just like I guess through doing a track like that and having a happy accident, it's like, oh cool, let me try more vocal layering, exploring my voice more and how far I can take it. I've been getting just way more into like vocal manipulation and just like how far can you like kind of push yourself rather than staying like in just a comfortable register. I think there's a lot to get out of the human voice as an instrument.
Definitely. Next up, we have Avalanche.
You know that this is only wearing you down. Does it have to be this way? Struck by an avalanche, dazed by the aftermath. Everything caved in at once while you were standing by my side. Everything caved in at once while you were standing by my side.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on Avalanche?
So the guitars usher in the signature Vacation sound. It's catchy, unique, and utilizes the best parts of your songwriting. For a sad song, I love the dichotomy of having happy instrumentals in this song. So can you talk about why you decided to highlight happy instrumentals with sad lyrics?
That's really interesting. I don't think of Avalanche as like a happy song. Like I don't like instrumentally at least. Like I guess it sounds kind of right, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like dark and like rocky to me. It'll definitely like go all out, like that last chorus and the bridge, and like that big crash as well, like just before it. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that. Like I think it's just interesting that's how you kind of experience the track, and I find that like I don't know.
So the second I heard this song, I thought, wow, this is one of the best songs of the year. It immediately went on to our Songs of the Year playlist, which, don't worry, I mean, we probably got you like 4 streams from that. You're welcome. And no, I'm just kidding. And it hasn't gotten any less enjoyable after the many listens I've had since my first listening. It's just top notch, especially in terms of its catchiness. And lyrically, I don't find you to be overly poetic throughout the record. You have definitely poetry throughout the songs, but like you said, you kind of simplify things for the chorus. But I do think that this first verse is some next level poetic, and I'll read it if you don't mind. Oh, to be a law unto yourself, a fixed state so compelled, so cast a spotlight and shine it on you. Such a sight eclipses any other view. Like, I'm just glad this wasn't written about me. Like, shots fired. They've been pummeled by an avalanche of incredible lyrics. And the cherry on top with the song is the production. So there's so many cool little details spread throughout this track from beginning to end. Do you mind talking about the production of this song specifically?
Yeah, stressful. Oh my God. Because we had a 3-day stint at 301 Studios in Sydney. We had 2 days just to track demos. And then on the last day, a Sunday, I think, it was like, that was going to be the day we were going to track the single that was about to come out. Obviously, it got pushed back further and further and further. It was ages ago. But it was the first time we were going to meet Oscar and work with him. And we had 10 hours to get this song down, which I've always had the luxury of recording at home. I have an unlimited amount of time. There's no real sense of pressure. It's quite carefree and easy. But like, to be in this studio we haven't spent a lot of time in and it's still kind of like weird and like, I don't know. And then like meeting someone like Oscar and just, I've never worked for a producer. None of us ever worked for a producer, I should say. It was just a lot to kind of take in, but it was just sort of like, okay, we need to get this down. Like, let's go. And I think we did a really, really good job. I think Oscar that day was quite in the zone and quite focused. Like, we did get to spend a little bit of time with him, but I think he was definitely like, I need to do the best that I can in the time limit that I have. And I think it turned out great. With that 10-hour time limit in mind, it was such a crunch that I only had about an hour to do vocals. And then it got to the time we had to actually get out. Nate had like 15 minutes to do his lead guitars. So actually we had another session, I think like a month later at Sawtooth Studios, which is a studio here in Newcastle that I do some work out. Shout outs to Sawtooth Studios. And we went back and we revised the vocals because the takes we got were just like, I was just stressed out. And like, it was just like, I was singing through like the same mic that Katy Perry had sung through and it was like 10 grand, but it just sounded like garbage because I wasn't having a good time. Like, which I think is just kind of funny as well, because I feel like some people place a lot of importance on like gear and equipment and like where you go. But it's like, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And like that session like definitely proved that fact to me. So we got to have another session where I could spend more time tracking the vocals, and then Nate actually got to, you know, have a good amount of time to get his guitar parts down. And I think like that definitely actually completed the song. But then we did some subtle layering as well. I did a bunch of like one takes, and then we did some stuff in like effects pedals as well, like these little laser guitars that you might hear throughout the bridge. I think they come in like from the left and then from the right or something like that.
Next up, we got Wildflower. Andrew, you're my wildflower.
Oh, thanks.
All right. What are your thoughts on the song?
So the reintroduction of those nature sounds seems to start to signify our transition to wrapping up the album. This song has some of the best vocals on the album from a performance standpoint. I can hear the passion in your vocals, and I believe the vocals and synths really carry the song. This album has had such an amazing tone for each instrument, whether it's the vocals, the synths, the guitars, bass, or drums. How did you go about creating tones for this song, and how do you know when you found the right sound for each instrument?
That's a good question, because I definitely feel like at the time when we were recording, because we only had 2 weeks to get it done. We were sort of under a lot of pressure to just get down tracks fast and really quick. So I actually felt like we didn't get to spend as much time on tone as we would have liked. So it was sort of like we got set up, we kind of did our rehearsals, and then we had like the one tone and just sort of stuck with it throughout the whole album. And I feel like obviously that would have helped give like a kind of unified sort of sound. But also, like, I guess we've been doing this for a little while now. Like, I think this is 5 years. So we all kind of know what we like, and we came in with like a lot of inspirations in mind, and like having someone like Oscar to really help nail each specific tone and help it just gel together in a way that's balanced but dynamic, quiet, and then loud, I think is extremely helpful with that. This song is like, it's really interesting though. It came from Nate, and it definitely has a lot of, because Nate's background is actually beats and like electronic music and just a completely different world to what I've kind of known, where I'm quite, band focused. And I feel like it's kind of this really beautiful mesh of the two, because Nate threw in heaps of like samples and just like this kind of natural kind of vibe, which has always kind of been, I feel like, his aesthetic in his productions. I feel like that's just very him, like when I think of a Nate song. But then like there's the rhythm guitar works for myself, like in the verses, and then there's like big vocals in the chorus. Like I feel like it all kind of, I feel like it is an ending to the album. I didn't even think about that as well. Like, not that it's the second last track, but like those nature sounds kind of coming back. Like, that's really, that's a really good observation. It's funny how sometimes you don't think about these things, or you just forget them, because it's been so long since I've been in the tracking session, and then COVID being like separated from everybody, like having other people listen to it and come back and be like, oh, hey, like this is kind of reminding me of this. And it's like, oh.
So this is one of the only songs on the album that isn't extremely guitar driven, which you kind of mentioned with Nate writing with that more electronic feel. And I was going to more ask a question about that, but I feel like you did a great job of sharing Nate's inspirations and how he kind of set the framework for the song. But I wanted to touch more on the title of the record, Forever in Bloom. That title is found within this track. Do you mind sharing on the process of naming the record?
Yeah, naming the record was funny, kind of interesting. I feel like, because I'm trying to remember the original title now, because I remember like pitched it through. The original title of the album was You're Living the Dream Now, because that's something I would hear so much when I returned home from tour. If I went out, someone would be like, oh yeah, you're living the dream now. Like, you're in a band, like you've got all this worldwide fame. And I'm like, well, kind of, nah, not really. Like, I don't know. We're still struggling to make it in Australia, and we have all these fans in the US, but we have no way of getting there. Like, we're in this weird purgatory kind of state. So I remember I pitched that title to the band and kind of like my thoughts and feelings and like the whole idea and context and whatnot. And then like everyone was into the idea, but I think we just kind of wanted to break down the title and try some alternative ideas and see what else we could kind of pull. And then also tapping into that kind of nature sort of theme. So I remember Nate sent through a short list, because again, he's very visual and just thinks of really pretty names. And I remember there was like Bloom, and then there was like a couple of other ones. And then like I really liked Bloom, and then I feel like there was something else that was like Forever, but it was like something else. And then it was kind of like almost like spinning a wheel and just sort of seeing what you're getting, but like just picking out titles and kind of piecing it together and stitching it and just like seeing what would go. And that's what we landed on, and that's what felt best for everybody.
Next up, we have the closing track, Take Care.
Take note, this won't last forever. Take care, nothing lasts forever. The light at the end of the tunnel was beside you this whole time. Take note, this won't last forever. Take care.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on Take Care?
This is the perfect ending to the album. It's the most unique song on the album for sure. It starts kind of as a piano ballad with other textured instruments throughout, but then it really crescendos into this just epic, huge portion of the album, probably the most epic part of the album in general. The vocals go from this low-range singing to shouting "This Won't Last Forever" at the top of your lungs. It's such a beautiful departure from the rest of the album. When did you guys know you wanted to write this kind of crescendoing ballad, and what was the hardest part of writing or recording this song?
I don't think I ever knew I wanted to write a ballad, but I had this track and it just came out one day and I was like, this is a very moody textural piece that's quite opening and like confessional. It's like I've just spilled my guts out everywhere and everyone's just like, oh my God, kind of theme or aesthetic. And I feel like that in itself is kind of a hard thing to do. And then to present that to a group of people where you're in a band and you primarily write very guitar-driven, pop kind of orientated music, it's a little bit weird, but I'm glad that everyone saw the potential in it and where it could go. And I think the hardest part about that was actually sort of sticking to the idea that this song could work. But I remember the moment where it clicked was with Oscar's production ideas, because what he would do is he would actually, before any recording even took place, we would just play the songs together as a group because he wanted to see like if we could even do that, which I mean we could, but it's just that way of like coaching, and it was like new to us, and we're like, oh, you don't want to start recording drums now, you just want to start jamming? He was like, yeah, start jamming. We're like, oh, weird, okay, sure, whatever. Like, but it worked, and we was like, we're gonna do Take Care, and everyone was like, oh, how are we gonna do that? Like, that's really, it just did not seem possible. But I remember it was a really beautiful and touching moment. We did 2 takes and everyone just felt really nice about it. It just felt really like, oh, that actually does work. It feels really like solidifying, like affirming, like, and I just remember we saw the potential in it and we were like, okay, this is actually the last track. And I think it was always from the standpoint that this was going to be the last track.
So this song, as you mentioned, is the obvious choice for the album's closer, both with the title and its theming, but also with the sound. For me, the crux of the song is found in the line, "Nothing lasts forever." And I think it's fitting because even though a lot of this record has been about hoping for the future, I think you remind people to make the most of the present because all things eventually come to an end. And it helps put things into perspective, and it's just such a fantastic way to close the record. How does this line, or the idea of nothing lasts forever, impact the way you view the band and your time in it?
Oh my God, I need to sit and think on that. I don't know. I'm just thinking back to when I actually wrote the lyrics, so this doesn't answer the question. I don't know. But like,
Fine.
I feel like I was going through a pretty heavy period in my life, and I just sort of was kind of starting to get through out into the other side. And like, again, that song, sort of in a similar vein to Banash, it just all came out one day and I was like, oh, what even is this? But like, I don't know, I just saw potential in it. And I really, again, kind of that whole life affirming, everything's going to be okay, self-help book kind of theme throughout my writing. It just stuck. And I feel like it just sort of does play into the album's themes, and just that idea that like I feel like we are going to break through and we are going to get through this weird bump. I feel like our career has been riding for a really long time where we just sort of are existing in that purgatory state where it's like, well, we're not like, yes, we do have that fan base, but we can't ever seem to actually physically get to wherever the fan base is, whether it's like in the US or Europe or Brazil or I don't know, wherever. I don't know. I feel like it's just got a lot of, like, it definitely has like a personal meaning for myself, but I think, yeah, for the band and tying that in, because I feel like every song, obviously there would be some sort of personal meaning or message for myself, but then it's like what the listener has and then like what it ties in with the band and that whole like theme going on there. But I think, yeah, just for the band, just, yeah, we are going to get through whatever we are going through. And I know that the band has collectively just gone through so many hard moments, like through touring or like writing and recording. Like we've all seen each other at like our best and our worst, and it's just sort of like this life goes on, but we're always improving as people. We're always getting better at this, even though it seems like maybe we're not. It's just all these life experiences like kind of building up and collecting and just learning from that and just constantly growing, constantly blooming, I should say. forever blooming.
What a fitting way to end the track by track. So real quick, I know you already mentioned your favorite song, but we usually end by talking through our favorite track real quick or mentioning it. So Andrew will go first, I'll go second, and then you can kind of just share maybe one more interesting piece about actors, if it is your favorite track. So Andrew, what's your favorite song?
So I think Nate probably could guess what my favorite track is, because I'm a sucker for experimental parts and bands departing and having maybe some of the more unique elements of a band coming through. And so Panache is my personal favorite. I just think it's so cool how I really almost separate the song into those like halves. The first half is so Vacations and like amazing and catchy, and then the second half is so experimental. That's where you get really collaborative. I love the auto-tune sound with it because I'm so used to hearing that in like hip-hop or like electronic, and I'm so not used to hearing it done in this way. And I think it creates such a cool texture. And I think everything you were saying as far as like this song and just like kind of the idea behind it, like let's just have fun. Like when you expect something, we don't want to just give you what you expect. We want to do something different. And I think the approach to this song is like so prevalent through the whole album, which is you guys trying to push and progress as a band and not just doing changes again or anything like that. That I think the song is so indicative of, I don't know, the band, and I just think it's so cool. So Panache is my favorite. How about you, Nate?
Yeah, so I think Andrew and I both, like, we love indie, we love sharing bands that we feel like are underrated, which is obviously why we have you on, because even though you guys aren't small, you guys are nowhere near as big as you should be. So I think I love having my favorite song be like a deep cut, like something that nobody's gonna say. And yet both Andrew and I are choosing singles. So mine's Avalanche. I think when I heard that song, like, I really liked Changes. It wasn't a record for me where I was like, I'm deeply in love with this. And I didn't know what the band's trajectory was going to be. I didn't know whether you guys were going to take a step forward, a step back, stay the same. And when I first heard Avalanche, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear this record, because this song is special. And like, I'm sure if they are able to repeat this, not from a simply sound standpoint, like write the same song, but continue to write this well and continue to execute this well, and the production be this solid, like this record's going to be special. And so it kind of really gave me hope that this would be a special record, and it turned out being a special record. And so I just think when I think about the record, I think this song kind of like jump-started me on hoping it would be awesome, and it followed through.
Oh, thank you. That's really touching. That's really sweet for both of you.
Yeah, no problem. So yours is actors?
Yeah, mine is actors. I feel like it just combines the best elements of just like fun, catchy guitar hooks that I feel like we're kind of previously known for, but then just sort of slowly blending in these really pretty synthetic elements, or synth elements, I should say, that complement the guitar tone. I think that was something that was really fun for me, this record, because I've never really experimented with synths. And once I kind of got more into sound design, it was like, well, how can I replicate that woozy kind of guitar tone that we're sort of starting to get known for onto a completely different instrument? So for me, that song is sort of like a gateway into like that experimentation in that world, and just kind of showing me a different side of songwriting, but still kind of keeping it grounded. It's just such a fun song as well. Like that 4 on the Floor kick pattern, it just goes from the very beginning. And it's a song that for me, I'm looking forward to so much playing live, because I just know it's going to go off. I know it's the song where everyone's going to be moving, everyone's going to be having fun, and to imagine that is really exciting. So I think for me, that's why it's my favorite.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing so much like helpful information and being so open and vulnerable about the whole process. And we just really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I've just never done a podcast before, and it's just really fun.
Well, we're glad you enjoyed yourself. For those listening, we hope you had fun too. If you're listening to this part 2 and you haven't listened to part 1, go check that out. But more importantly, if you're listening to this, the record's out. It's out right now. So buy the record on vinyl, stream it a billion times, support the boys when they're out on tour, hopefully soon, and encourage them with your kind words, as this record and the labor of love that they put into it is well worth the appreciation.
Oh, no, thank you guys so much. It's been very fun.
All right, that was part 2 of our 2-part episode with Campbell Burns. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Campbell. We just thank him for being a part of this podcast, and we hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure that you are following Vacations on all of their socials. That way, when they start doing tours or shows or anything like that, you will be notified of those. You can also follow us on our socials. We are on Twitter and Instagram at LDL Pod, and you can also email us at longdistancelistening@gmail.com. Thanks, and have a great day.
Eleven!